Good afternoon, everybody. We're live 1 minute early, so we're going to wait 1 or 2 minutes for everyone to join and start the webinar in just a few seconds.
Hey, everybody. Everybody's nice and warm in this Belgian weather, for those who are from Belgium.
In Belgium, we love to complain, Chris. If it's rainy, then we complain it rains. If it's 1 day warm, we complain it's too warm.
Indeed, today it's too hot, 31 degrees. For those already there, can you say hi in the chat so we see that it's working? Can you confirm that you hear and see us? All right, cool. At least some people can hear us.
And I have 4 p.m. and 1 minute, so let's kick off and once again say hi and welcome to everybody. Thanks for joining. For those that joined our previous Conveyor webinar somewhere end of June with Kinda Almari from Prima, it will be quite a similar format. So that means we're not presenting many slides. We are providing more content, more spoken content in an interactive way, in a purely one-to-one discussion. If you have your own questions, feel free to drop them into the chat and I will try to get them in during our conversation. Today's webinar concerns the portal. So a lot has changed since our last webinar, because the day after we've announced a new open source project, the Data Product Portal. And today we're going to explain why we did that, what it is, and how you can start using or contributing to it. And to do so, I have Kris Peeters with me. Kris is the CEO of Data Minded. And Kris, I believe you are one of those rare guys who can really say something useful on the state of data in general. You oversee many of your customers, many of their projects. So just to set the scene, could you briefly describe how your day-to-day looks like and what are the typical projects or customers are which you come across?
Yeah, thanks, Wannes. So I'm Kris, indeed. For those who don't know me, I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Data Minded. We're based out of Leuven, Belgium. We're about 50 engineers, and we help our companies, our clients build data platforms, MLOps solutions, typically large-scale data solutions. Gen AI these days is also a hype. But any kind of data solution. We're mainly active in Belgium, but we also opened an office in Germany. So we're also doing some cool work there. The kind of clients we have are typically regulated industries, are often our clients. Think finance, think biotech, think government. Typically larger companies. It's not like the butcher from around the corner, but it's typically like the larger companies who want to invest in data, want to grow in data maturity. They want to do more with data science. They want to do more with AI. They maybe IoT, those kind of companies. And one thing they have in common, almost all of them, is that they typically have, let's say, multiple data teams that want to get active. And there's typically a central data platform team that has to support those teams, right? And actually, to turn the question around, Wannes, what about yourself? Maybe because you're active in the community, you also have a very broad, even broader maybe industry overview. How do you look at the data world these days?
Yeah, indeed, Kris, thanks. I'm mostly active in the data mesh learning community. So I've led a larger data mesh journey, so making data available for everyone, allowing a federated or a decentralized team to work with data. Which recently turned me into a data mesh learning MVP. So that means I just keep talking about it. And if you talk a lot, people believe that you have something useful to say. But that also means that I'm indeed quite often involved in meetups, mostly with regards to data governance or around the data mesh concept or around federated teams. So I might have kind of a biased overview of what's happening. but I will have a good overview of what's happening if you really want to go to what we call a data democratization, where you try to make data available for everyone, and the challenges that are rising or changing when you really want to have multiple teams working on the same data platform, as you were saying. From the moment you get one data platform team, and it's not, they're building a data platform not only for their own use, but getting more people on top of it and trying to get the governance in place. That's where I flourish, or where my background lays. And I think that's also a bit where most companies are either heading towards or have the ambition to head towards. Not everyone is there yet. And while I did say in the introduction I was not going to show slides, I'm going to show one. Apologies therefore, because together we once made a kind of a cycle where you see most companies go through to reach this federated data maturity. Most often a journey starts with a first use case, try to scale that, bring on more complex cases, like you were saying, the first Gen AI use case, the first data science use case, still in a limited amount of people being involved. You grow the number of people working with data, hence you need to start enabling data sharing, maybe thinking about FAIR principles, making data findable, accessible, interoperable, repeatable. And more, at least for the companies that I see, you start to support business critical use cases. Think of machine learning algorithms, supporting recommender systems which feed back to your operational systems. And as well, more and more, this data is being made available for everyone, kind of a data democratization. So what I mostly see is this upper right boundary, but I think this is the end goal for most, and this is a typical path towards it. Kris, we've created this one together. Where would you say most companies are, or most teams are on this road to become data-driven?
Yeah, indeed, that's a good question. I think we've been around for 10 years now, so we're, as a company in data, we're becoming quite old. And 10 years ago, when we talked with companies about what is your dream with data, where do you want to end up, they were already talking about what they called back then self-service BI. So the idea of everybody in the company do their own analytics with data, like data democratization, was already a thing back then. But if you fast forward 10 years later, honestly, if you're really honest, a lot of companies are still in the bottom left quadrant, right? So they're still they do a lot of isolated use cases. So every department has their own use cases, maybe running on a different platform or running on no platform at all. Or they have some initial data science Gen AI going on, but that's usually a set of notebooks that they run in sequence or something. It's very hard for companies, and that's also why we that's the big jump to go from that. Okay, I have an MVP, I build a few use cases going well, maybe I do some data science. You can do that with one team, right? But then if you really want to start enabling data sharing with governance, so that multiple teams can start working on the same data, and once you start talking about business critical use cases, like we will have hard dollar losses if this is not up and running, the conversation shifts. If you see a lot of the companies in the bottom left, well, they don't care if the platform is down. They don't care if the entire data team can access all the data. They don't care if one job takes off all the resources of the platform, something like that. Once you go to the top right, it becomes a lot more complex, right? So a lot of companies are in this shift. But yeah, everybody's in that shift in the same pace. I think maybe that we don't see a lot of companies in the top right. So maybe that's a question for you, Wannes. If you're active in the data mesh community, at least on slides, whenever they present their use cases to the world, companies seem to have fully adopted all the data mesh thinking, and they're completely there. But if are they really, honestly, are they really in the final phase, or where do you see the companies on this adoption curve?
No, I think companies should better even follow this adoption curve. What you often see is when you want to adopt the data mesh principles and make data available to everyone, install data product thinking platform, the governance thing is the hard part. So you have the four major pillars, and the computational governance and governance in general is what often lacks and is still coming after the facts. While if you went through this entire adoption cycle, it would allow you to kind of install a governance by default or a governance by design before you reach this end state. So while I think many are aiming for this full data democratization, this full data mesh on slide things, and so on, what they are struggling is still to move from one or two use cases to really a bunch of use cases being built throughout the entire company with the correct governance in place. So either you're limiting yourself to a limited set of use cases because you can govern in your mind, or you're going all in, but you might be creating new silos, new data silos, and you lack the overview of what's happening, how everything is properly integrated. So I think we're quite often skipping some steps here, and there's room for this right governance in place, first for one team, and then being able to scale this across multiple teams working with your data. Which immediately brings us a bit to the challenges on this road to data maturity. You were saying that they're a bit everywhere, and maybe even within a team, within a company, one team is still quite early, another team is in the upper right quadrant. Yeah, that means you've seen companies and teams all across this curve. So what are the challenges those companies are actually having and those teams are actually having to move further down the road?
Yeah, I just want to confirm the one thing that you already mentioned is about skipping a few steps. Like they read the blog on data mesh, like, yeah, we need to adopt that everywhere. And every department should embrace data product thinking and data mesh approach and whatnot. But most departments are simply not ready for that. Most, even at the let's say more advanced companies who are very mature in terms of data, not all of their departments are mature indeed, right? So it might be that your finance department can already do self-service analytics, if you will, in some way or another, or be responsible for their own use cases, but your marketing department is completely not there, or your supply chain is really optimized and is really using AI, but your sales team is doing still things on pen and paper, if you will, right? So that's definitely a challenge. I also think that typically there can be two different focuses, and both are wrong, right? They can see this either as a pure technology play, where they say, hey, this data platform is working really well for this one team. Let's give every team their own data platform to play with, or their own tools, or an empty AWS account, and just everybody has the same power as a data platform team to build the same use cases. But then you just build 6 silos, right? Just investing in technology makes sure that you have a lot of maintenance hell later, and the people who build the platform are not typically the ones who want to run the platform, even though we all like to think that from DevOps, you build it, you run it. Huh? What we see in reality, like, it's an engineering trait, I don't know why, but we all like to build stuff, but we don't like to run stuff. So you end up with like several unmaintainable pieces of technology, to be honest, and it's not helping everybody. Everybody's having the same overhead. So that extreme is just pure technology play is really a mistake I've seen many companies make. But then the other one is also a mistake, right? Where you say, hey, governance priority number 1. So everything needs to be strict and well-defined, and we need to have an exact definition of everything. And we're going to do a 2-year data governance track before we even going to start about thinking building use cases, right? And that's also bad, because I've seen plenty of companies like that who spent 1-2 years making slides about data governance and not moving at all with data use cases. And they're completely detached from reality. The thing is, on slides, everything works on slides. Slides always compile, right? But it's just when you're building use cases that you notice, like, okay, this idea of data governance is really working, or this is not really working. It really depends on the team you're having, the culture you're having in the organization. So the challenge is to have the technology, the change management, the people, the processes, like let that mature at the same pace. That's really difficult. Yeah, in a way. Yeah, so I don't know. When you're talking about this, I don't know how you look at this ones.
Yeah, I think indeed what you said from a technology point of view, you're absolutely right. Huh? If you start from technology, this has worked for one team. This does not automatically scale to a bunch of other teams, because what you're trying to do is to make data available for less technical people. I always tell I can write code, but you don't want my code into production. What you're aiming for here is that someone like me can actually put code into production, can transform its data, can add his own data, his own business logic to data. So you're enabling more people, and they might have other needs than this first initial central data team with some wizards that can write Scala, Python, or whatever. On the other hand, if you look to data governance, indeed you should not overthink it, because you might end up doing nothing. But you should also not omit it and only do it after the fact. If I think to my own data mesh journey we underwent, what we did is we started with just one or two domains, quite simple. Everyone has the overview of what's happening in mind. All data is stored on a single location from a technical point of view. Everyone knows what's there. It's just two elements you need to think about interoperable, make sure they can connect to each other. But then you start scaling, and yet again you hit certain bumps because you don't know how to do this. So somewhere in this path you need to start thinking data governance, not entirely from the start, but somewhere you need to think. And you were mentioning it. There's a lot of slides about data governance. There's a lot of fair principle data. There's data catalogs, all stuff like this, all aiming to solve the same issue. I think we're both saying apparently it's not yet solved. How does it come? Is it because we're moving to less technical people, or is there more to it? So what's the thing still missing?
Yeah, I think the business side of those teams, they're trying to, let's say, as I said, solve everything from a conceptual point of view, and the engineers try to solve everything from a technology point of view. But in a way, we talk different languages. It's like we have a wrong level of abstraction somehow, right? So those two worlds, they still don't work well together anymore. So I don't know, Wannes, if you're planning to share that idea of data product thinking now, but I think what is really missing from a conceptual point of view is that one. It's a bit small, so but for you to zoom in, what I think that introducing the notion of a data product, and I know it's a loaded term, and we're going to talk about that, but having that notion of a data product instead of talking about individual data sets or individual data pipelines, is like a common language that we have across each other, right? So what do we mean when we talk about a data product? A data product is a combination of the data. That's both the data that you need to consume from other data products and the data you produce. It is all the tooling and infrastructure and whatnot you need to build that data product, where your algorithm, your code, all those things, and is the person working on the data product, right? It's a very active living thing. A data product is something that can deliver value to the rest of the organization. It's not a static data set. And this is something that I think business people or more governance-focused people can understand. They understand the notion of a data product, and they also understand how data products can work together. And this is also something that the more technical people can start with, translating those concepts into a technical implementation, right? Yeah, I don't know, Wannes, what your experience is with, of course, data products play a big role in data mesh as well. Have you been adopting that, and how have you seen this?
Yeah, I think first of all, there's still many definitions out there, and I kind of like the one that you give. My shortest definition is a data product is the data and everything you need to start using it, which means that you need to have the infrastructure to build it and to interact with the data, which means that it includes the business logic so that it's self-describing so that you can start using it. It also means that if you don't know, you know where to go through. So it covers quite a lot. What you see on the market, though, is that depending on the vendor, there's still a lot of different definitions. It's coming from purely it's an access thing. It's purely a governance and an ownership thing. Some include the infrastructure, others don't. And what you also see a lot coming up, and probably makes sense, is the concept of a data contract. And then you're talking, is a data product, has it a one-to-one relation with a data contract, or is it differently? Is it a one-to-many? Is it even a many-to-many? Really depends on who you're talking to. If you recall the webinar we had with Kinda Almari last time, she says, ideally, you start with a one-on-one mapping. You're making a data product for a given purpose. This is what we're doing it for, which kind of creates one output port, which is described by your data contract. Or if I already translate to the concepts of the portal, this is the one data set you can consume, which determines kind of the data product. But then later on, you come across the fact that you might be using the same thing over and over for multiple purposes. We've built something in marketing to build a recommender, but we can use the same data for something differently. If only we limit it to Belgian data or US data or whatever, which creates a second output port. So second data set, second data contract, and as such, it becomes a one-to-many relationship. Which I can really relate to. I think this is the way you go. You start with one single purpose. Later on, you think about reusability and adding multiple purposes. On the other hand, and this is where I still struggle myself to identify, I've heard it was Jean-Georges Perrin with the open data contract standard, the open data product standard, saying one data contract can also belong to multiple data products, and it might make things more complex. So I love to say one data product, multiple data sets. This is what you consume for the main purpose of this data product. And it has everything attached to it, what you really need to use it. Business logic, data access, owners, technology if needed, but in an as agnostic manner as possible, because you're actually targeting less technical people. But then where people still struggle, if this is all done and I create this in kind of my silo, it's not a silo in my department, and I want to make it, I want to share it back to my organization, that's where people still struggle. Either you do this from a central point of view, we all put it on a central S3 location, or we build it with one single Databricks and put it in a Unity catalog or a Colibra catalog. This is where you can find it. But there's more. It's a different granular level. It's not a table. It's a data product. So I think this is the problem still to solve. In my opinion, there's kind of a difference between a data product discovery tool, data product catalog, and a pure data catalog. And there's also a distinction between purely the discovery and the development. So there's still many tools out there which you should probably integrate. What's your view on this, Kris?
Yeah, I think, and maybe I'm also going into some of the comments here, because I don't know if you noticed them, but I like the remarks here. Klaus, you say like it's an intersection of technology and people and change. That has to be addressed at the same time. That is very true, and I think that comes back to what Stefan and said, like, are we not making everything more complex, right? Indeed, 20 years ago, I don't know if it's that old, but you read the Kimball methodology and you delivered fact tables and dimension tables, and you could build a report on that, or a data mart, or whatever you want to call it. You have a report and that's it. But now we're bringing in so many different concepts into this discussion, and it's complex for everybody. And it's like, are we just not, what do you say, us consultants trying to sell more consulting hours, right? But I think the use of data has changed, right? So where 20 years ago it was good if you had a monthly report to the CEO where the numbers were roughly right, now data becomes more and more an operational reality, right? And by the way, if that's not the case for your organization, awesome, and like keep building Kimball dashboards and monthly reports. But we see at a lot of our clients that data becomes a much more living thing in their organizations. And that's why we need to think about data as not like a static set that we deliver, but yeah, as a product that brings value to something downstream, right? That makes it indeed more complex. I also have to be honest that in IT, we all love to, what do you say, overthink all our definitions. And every vendor tries to put the definition so that it fits in their specific thing, right? So we see, for instance, data catalog vendors now, they also add the notion of a data product. And a data product for a data catalog vendor is nothing more than a grouping of tables. Yeah. That makes it easy, right? And probably for a data access vendor, like a data product is nothing more than a group of accesses. But I don't know if that's really helpful for everybody, right? And I think that's also what is missing in the industry. And I don't know how this will evolve, of course, but everybody has this data product thinking in their minds, but nobody really has a tool that is built from the ground up to work with the concept of data products. Well, there are some tools emerging. I'm not saying this data product portal is the only one, but it's a very young field. It's only since a couple of years that we start thinking of data products as a first-rank citizen, if you will, right? So I think that's really an exciting change, because I feel it's the first time that when I talk to non-technical or non-engineers, that they understand what we're saying, right? Before we said, yeah, my Airflow DAG was red and I need to look into the Hadoop logs and blah, they had no idea what I was saying, right? or when a data governance person talks about whatever thing that they find in a data catalog and a strict PII definition of this table, and you cannot row level access, and like a normal person also doesn't know what they're talking about. But now when we're talking about data products, it's like a first rank citizen, if you will, in this discussion. I feel like a lot of discussions with business becomes a lot more simple, right? So I don't know if you also, if that resonates with you, Wannes.
Yeah, I think you said a lot of useful things, and I had the next question in mind where we try to really move towards data product discovery. You already said depending on the vendor, they're shaping their definition to make it fit somehow. What you were mentioning is you have a data catalog defining a data product as just some tables because that fits in their thing, but it might lack all the other things. Same for access management. I think it was Klaus in the chat also asking why not you just use Databricks for everything. So maybe they as well with Unity Catalog, they have a catalog, but they also have the development. We from Conveyor believe we have Conveyor purely as a data product development workbench. So that's the development. Then you have probably you require a catalog purely for the governance perspective. You need to store your data somewhere. And we see Portal in the middle as the one putting all the integrations and the connections to the other elements. Why? Well, I'm assuming you put faith in our vision. Otherwise, you weren't here. Why do you believe this is the way to go, and why can't any of the existing tools out there transition into this single solution offering everything? So, to ask Klaus this question, why not just Databricks?
Yeah, I think a key point there is we've all been in technology long enough now. I've been into that. Yeah, I'm getting old. I've been here since 2005, so almost 20 years, and I've been 15 of that I've been active in data or something. And if there's one consistent thing is that there's never ever a single platform or tool that solves all your needs of your company. It wasn't true even back in the day, like people chose like, let's standardize on Oracle and let's do everything on Oracle. And now what we saw was that actually 90% of the use cases happened in Excel outside of Oracle because Oracle couldn't do it, right? It's the same with Databricks. Don't get me wrong, Databricks is a great tool. You can do a lot with Databricks. You can do a lot with Snowflake. You can do a lot with Excel. You can do a lot with Azure ML. The thing is, all those tools are great, but then will never ever be one single tool that can do everything for you, right? It's never going to be the case. So if you're going to roll out a data platform and you have to support multiple data teams, there is a fact of life that you will need to support multiple tools, right? So you cannot just say, let's standardize on the AWS Glue catalog for data definitions or the Unity catalog, or I mean, whatever they're offering, because it will never be. I mean, of course, they're selling that. Snowflake is also pushing hard on that idea. Let's just put everything in Snowflake, maybe with virtual tables or whatever they call it, and then once you put everything in Snowflake, your world, you are safe, right? But it's never going to happen. You will still have some legacy on premise. So I think when you want to do governance on a data product level, again, the data catalogs, they will never treat data products as a first-rank citizen. It's just a grouping of tables, but it doesn't add much. You need something that starts from the data product concept to begin with. And I think let's say the technology vendors, they will always look at it from their own bubble, right? We had a look at, it's a very unknown tool, but as an example of what it should not be is, you guys should Google data.all. I'll send you the link. It's an open source project initiated by Amazon, and I love Amazon. We're an Amazon advanced partner. We do a lot of things on Amazon, don't get me wrong. But they try to do this governance thing purely from an AWS perspective. So if you have everything on AWS, that should work together. It was a hell. that didn't work. So you need something that's technology independent, that has data products as a first-rank citizen. And maybe the most important part is that the primary users of that product should be the less technical users. We have plenty of technical things like Conveyor is data product developer workbench. If you know what you're doing, if you're an engineer, you can go there, you can do Airflow DAGs, you can open notebooks and IDEs and go crazy with Kubernetes scaling or whatever you want. But the governance aspect, it should be in a language that everybody understands, right? The portal should be in a language and on a level that everybody can access and everybody knows what their data landscape looks like. And again, the data product portal is not the only tool out there. I know there's quite some initiatives there, but they're all relatively fresh, and they all start from the data product as a first-rank citizen, and that's what I like about the data product portal.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Let's start from data product as a first-rank citizen, and from there you can link. And the portal is all about the integrations. From there, you need to move towards your development workbench, which can be Conveyor, which can be something else. From there, you can move to your catalog, which can be Calibra, which can be Unity, which can be something else. From there, you can move towards your data. So it's all about setting up these integrations and making sure that you have you don't try to force everyone in a similar format, but you have a single place where people can start looking. This is, if I need to interact with the data product, this is where I start, and from where I get guided towards what I need, what I actually need, and then whether I want to interact with data in a dashboarding tool or in a notebook, or purely via SQL interface. From there, and I can move and everything's ready. So it makes me a bit more productive. Also, though, from the other side, I also think there's a lot about processes. We've talked about access and data access, and it can be an example here. If I want to get access to a data product, that again, my journey starts in the data product catalog. What's the purpose of this data? Why does it exist? And from there on, I can request access. An owner can approve, or maybe I first go to the catalog, investigate what's really in there. Does it fulfill my need? I request access, and it gets. So it's about these integrations which we provide, which we've already provided a few within the portal, and which is fully open source. So you can add your own links so that you can really make sure that people can work with the tools which they desire. it can be bidirectional. I saw the question from Gustavo, what about calculating the ROI of some data product? I don't say we're already there in calculating the value, because that's probably something a company needs to decide upon itself. But to ROI, you also need to have the investment, the cost. This can come from your development workbench, where you have some infrastructure, you know what the cost is, you feed it back, so at least you can already kind of do bookkeeping, analytical bookkeeping. Who's using my data product? So you can use this. This is the cost of our data product. So there's a lot of things to do by properly integrating everything, getting this consistent overview of everything.
There's actually two things I want to add to that. One is the ROI calculation. I've seen one client, and it's really cool. They have a whole system of chargebacks. So if you want to consume a data product, you need to pay for it, maybe a monthly amount or a one-off fee or whatever. And that's actually like actual money is going from left to right in the organization. And that's why is that really good? Is because we all know data warehouses have been around for 10, 20 years, and there's hundreds of reports being calculated every day, and nobody dares to say what the reports are used for, and nobody dares to shut off the reports. Here, when you say, I want to consume this data product, if you really want to consume that data product, you should be willing to pay for it, right? And that also makes sure that your data landscape stays fresh, because data products that are not being consumed by downstream consumers, they will be decommissioned. And that's a part of the data lifecycle that we sometimes forget. And then another thing that I wanted to add to what you said, Wannes, is about what I like about the data product portal is what you define there. It's like, okay, this is a data product that has access to these data sets. It will produce these data sets. These people can work on it. It is translated into reality. It is not just a wiki page with some nice documentation. It is, if you see it, that is also the source of truth. You know who, you're sharing the screenshot here. You know which data products are in your landscape, which data they're consuming, which data they're producing. Later, indeed, you might even add ROI calculations. You might add data contracts or SLAs that you want to visualize here. But there's a big difference between this and, let's say, more static data definitions, where you go to your data catalog and you see 1,000 tables and say, this customer table should contain a customer number, and it should also contain a customer address. But actually, that table hasn't been updated in 6 months, and I also can't access it, or I can't find it, or I can't use it. So it is a sort of shift left on governance, if you will, and that's what I really like about this tool.
Yeah, I think we've reached the moment where we should talk about the portal itself. For those willing, in the chat, I've shared both the GitHub repository, where you can start using it yourself or contribute, and the Slack community to join. But indeed, what we've been talking about is you lack something in the middle, which gives you an overview of what's there. And as you said, it's actionable. It tells this is the truth, as it enforces it as well in other tools. And from there on, you can link to those tools. So what you see, for example, on the screenshot is an overview of a data product. All the data sets, as said, this is a bit the output coming from the data, or the input used for the data product, so that you can really know what is going on. From there on, either I visit the data in AWS, I go develop in Conveyor, or I move towards to my Jupyter notebooks or my Databricks notebooks or Tableau, or I interact it with Snowflake. All these integrations are there. So it's the single point of truth where you see what's going on, and from there on you can link. And it would indeed be nice if certain elements are getting fed back towards the system itself. So I think we've talked quite a lot about the concept and what's in there. But Kris, you've seen the portal. There might be some, well, not the pure vision elements, but small additions which are valuable as well. What did you see as these are really life changers for myself? Small things that really help you in your day-to-day business.
Yeah, well, there's a few, right? As I said, the nice thing here is that as I said, first and foremost, it should be a tool for more, let's say, less technical users to understand what's going on in the data landscape, also to do audits and checks and whatnot to make sure that everything is as it should, right? But it's also super convenient self-service tool, right? Where if I want to know, I'm working on a data product and I see something's going wrong. Before there was a portal, I needed to go to, let's say, Airflow, find my DAG somewhere in the list of DAGs, look at the logs of those DAGs. Okay, see something wrong, I need to go to GitHub, try to debug it there. I might need to jump to a data catalog to investigate what those tables are, but then lose my way in thousands of tables. What I like here is the notion that it all comes together on the data product level. So I start from a data product, I can click those links you see on the right. Also for the data sets, I can click on those links and I can go to wherever I need to be and I can start working. So I feel a bit more empowered as a, if I ever do engineering anymore, as an engineer to just be really self-service. And this is something, if you've been there as a, let's say as a data platform team where you try to onboard less technical data teams, that is super hard. If you onboard super technical guys, you can just say, hey, here's the Terraform code, here's the AWS credentials, here's the blah, blah, blah. Get started, and they are getting started. The reality is that 80% of people who want to do something useful with data are a lot less technical than we are. And that's normal because that's our job to be like technical, but they know a lot more about the data, right? So I have this example of, and I'm not really proud of it, but we did a use case for a large client of ours. It took us 6 months to build that use case and ingest the data and do the analysis and whatever. The business manager responsible for the use case looked at the dashboard for 5 minutes and he said, Kris, the numbers are wrong. I know my numbers, I know my data, this is wrong. And he was right. So we are very good at building the technical pipelines and the CI/CD and whatever you will, but they know their data best. So it would have been much more effective if they had a junior analyst who is not as good in engineering as we are, but embedded in the business, built that same use case. It would have taken a few weeks and would have been better than what we built. And that was for me a realization, like, yeah, it's great to have great engineers, but you cannot expect to have great engineers across all your business units. And it's actually more important to have people who can do self-service work within their business unit. One company where we rolled this out, they used to have a central data team with a central old data warehouse. And if you wanted to change something, it took 6 months to tweak, literally, right? They had a backlog of 2 years, right? And it took 6 months or 9 months to add a feature or something. So you couldn't move. And so you saw that all their actual data analysis were done in Microsoft Access, in fact. And when we opened this portal and we let them register their own use case and their own data products and in a governed way, so with the right access and whatnot, in no time, we had 200 data products identified. And it was not all Gen AI and deep learning and neural networks. No, like I think 190 of them were connect to this so I can process this data in Access. And as an engineer, I like process the data in Access. But as like from a business point of view, now we know of 200 different use cases that process this data downstream into further whatever they're doing with it. And it's an opportunity to identify the ones that are business critical, because trust me, they run business critical use cases in Access, and maybe transform them into Python or dbt or whatever you have to make it a bit more structured, right? So that was for me an eye opener of using the portal.
Yep. It is open source. We have a vision, of course, where we're heading towards. What do you think should be the next extensions to the portal? Where can people help?
I think what was mentioned around the ROI is a good example. Maybe we didn't discuss this up front, but Neil at the same time asked to see a small demo of the portal. It's okay if I share my screen and just show a demo, and then I can say what I would love. Yeah.
Sure.
This is not very scripted, guys, but let's go with it. Wait, just a sec. It's going. Yeah. Oof. to move. Yeah, so I'll do the demo and at the same time show you where I think things can still be improved. So as you know, we open sourced this last month. Now we're in a phase of collecting a lot of feedback. But the idea here is what Wannes just showed here. You have a list of data products, a list of data sets. So if I go to a data product here, I get to know a description. I get to see the data sets that are used to produce this, that are used as input. I see who is allowed to work on this. I get this nice Explorer view to see how we got to this.
Sam is asking whether you can zoom in a little bit.
Yeah, Sam is old, huh? So Sam, especially for you. Sorry, Sam, I had to do this. But can I, wait, maybe, yeah, like this, zoom in like this, yeah. Don't have my glass. I remember that code, Sam. Here we go. Right, so you have an Explorer, you see how, which data sets go into this data product. You have a team. The data sets, again, you have the About button. The nice thing as well with data products is they have a status, they have a business area which they belong to, they have a type, and you see the access, who can work on it, and what kind of data sets they consume. Here's as well, I get asked that question a lot. If you create a new data product, if you select a type, here you can define, let's say, certain templates of, this is how we typically do a DBT project on Snowflake. You can say DBT Snowflake type if you add that type, and then behind the scenes you can deploy a new Git repo with a template that you already like. You can add CI/CD. You can do all those things behind the scenes. The nice thing is you only have to set it up once, and once it's set up, it works for all your 200 data products, right? So that's pretty cool. Coming back to what I would like to add to this, I think, as we said, the data product is more than just a set of tables, right? Calculating ROI is very important. Having some idea of what are your data contracts, what are SLAs, are you meeting those SLAs? Is this a stable data product or not? Where in the life cycle is this data product? Are you still in MVP mode? Are you experimenting? Is this super solid? Maybe add a price. You want to consume this data product? Or you want to consume a data set that is produced by this data product, well, here's the fee you need to pay, something like that. So those are all kind of extensions that we would really like to see. Of course, what's also important for us is these extensions. So now if I click on Conveyor, for instance, it's automatically integrated with Conveyor. You end up at the right project. You can start opening an IDE and start working directly on the data product, and it's seamlessly integrated, which sounds very simple, but there's a whole OIDC flow behind the scenes, which makes it a bit complex. But we would love to have more integrations, right? We're still in early days. So for instance, today we don't have a Databricks integration yet, but we would love, and we're talking with companies to build it. There's some clients interested in the portal in combination with Databricks. So we'd love to have here, like, okay, I'm working on this data product. Now I go to my Databricks notebook and start working on it, right? Those are the kind of integrations we would love. The same with data sets. So a data set is what a data product produces. Let's look at this data set. Here, ideally, well, we would have a link to, now I want to see this data set in Colibra or in Data Hub. We added the icons, but we still need to make the link, right? So those are things that we would love to see. I hope that makes sense.
I think indeed, and if you have questions for the demo, please add them as well. But I think this is indeed where we can rapidly extend, and where contributors can help is building those integrations, making sure that we integrate with certain data catalogs, certain development workbenches, cloud providers, and stuff. I'm going to ask the final question, Kris. One of the integrations you showed is the one with Conveyor. You see them interacting because you move directly to the project. Do you need to use both to get value, or is there already value in the portal without Conveyor?
Yeah, so the whole point of the portal is that it's technology independent, right? There is I'm going to add one more slide. I know we said we wouldn't do slides, but I like this one slide. Just a sec. the portal should always be technology independent, right? You should be able to define data products on a level that a business user can understand. It can never be about conveyor or airflow or Databricks or iceberg tables, because I can guarantee you your business user doesn't understand that, right? And so a picture I like to use, is coming up, is this one. Yeah, there we go. So here we had this data product definition that you would see in the portal, right? But behind the scenes, that needs to be translated to policies in your data access tool, compute provisioning, storage provisioning, setting up projects, setting up access keys, whatnot. And actually, the portal aims to be this arrow here. It aims to be the translation between that conceptual world that you see in the UI and let's say the physical world that we data engineers and data platform engineers work quite well with, right? So that's the translation we aim to do. And maybe one more thing, but maybe I'm going overboard. But the nice thing, this is all UI that you just saw, but the UI is just a thin layer above all the APIs that you see, above APIs. So everything you see in the portal can be scripted. So that arrow that you saw, like translating that, you can fully automate that with whatever process you already have in your data platform team, whatever Terraform you already do, whatever automation you already have, you can just add the automation, include the portal in your automation, if you will.
Yeah. We have one more question from Stefan as well in the chat. If you define a data product, is this something you can run, or is it just a high-level layer of metadata?
Well, on the portal doesn't run anything, right? The portal just visualizes and documents what you have. But about running data products and compute infrastructure, that's where we have those tools for. They can run on Databricks, they can run on Snowflake. But ideally, so it's not there yet, is we would like to see the status of those runs back in the portal. I think, right, if you ask me, Wannes, I would love to see the status of those runs back in the portal. Like did we succeed? What is the kind of what is the data quality as well of what we're producing? How many failed runs do we have? Stuff like that. If I can get that in a high-level overview, that would be great. But the data product, the portal itself is, yeah, I wouldn't say a dumb tool because then I'm not selling it, but it's it doesn't touch your data.
I'm going to try to summarize everything we've said. We've said a lot, so it's going to be a challenge. We also still have 8 more minutes, so still feel free to pop in some questions. I think where we started is if the vision companies are having is making data available for everyone in a self-service manner. So we had some ways with self-service BI or making the end layer available. What we're trying to do here is making the giving people true ownership to actually include business logic quite early in the process and really determines everything. If you want to do this on a large scale, you're working with multiple teams. That brings challenges to your data platform. When you have a single data platform enabling a single team of highly skilled data engineers, they were quite easily doing this, but sometimes lacking the business knowledge. If you try to scale towards more business people, you have other demands on your data platform, and you also get a governance challenge. You try to bring on new tools, make it easier, and make sure that you can govern everything. This is kind of where the portal fits in. It's technology agnostic. It allows you to connect whichever data tool, not data source, but really data tool you want, whether it's actual storage or data source, whether it's a governance data catalog, whether it's your development workbench, conveyor, or something else. Portal allows you to define these are data products. This is where you can start working on it. And this is the process to get access, to start a new data product, and so on and so on. This is the key value we have. The project is 1 month old. To be honest, we have a few integrations, not much. So this is definitely where people can collaborate, and there's value in there, whether you're using conveyor or not. Of course, we love whether you use both, but it's definitely not obliged to get value out of it. So this is a bit what the portal is about. I'm going to share once more the Slack link, the Slack community as well. Thanks to this webinar, we have 5 new participants as well. So thanks a lot already for joining. Going to address the question from Neil. It looks like a metadata layer about the pipelines that can ingest metadata on data sets, reports from data catalogs. Can the reverse be done as well? Can a data catalog also ingest the data portal? Neil, as said before, currently it's quite often a one-way direction, but we love to have bidirectional syncs. To give the example on the development, we said you can move towards the project where you can start developing and you get the cost back from the product, from your development workbench to really put it on a data product level. This is the cost. For data catalog, that could be the same. Know, however, that the data catalog adds a layer of a data product on top of data sets, which probably coincide with elements in your data catalog. It does not necessarily, it does not know all metadata of all fields in. So yes, certain metadata can be exported, and we would love that the portal can define the data products in the data catalog. As Kris was saying, a data catalog has the concept of a data catalog combining certain tables. This could be managed through the portal. We're not going to update all field descriptions.
No, indeed. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Wannes. But that's definitely possible, Anila. So we just typically, well, it's a cliche consulting answer, but we have to look at what your process is in your company, how you see what is the source of truth for you, and how do you see that flowing. And as I said, it's all API driven, so we can integrate it left and right. We just have to do what makes sense in your context. Yeah.
Then Sam was asking, do you have a few pointers on how you can contribute? I already answered the dumb answer in the chat, so again, the link to GitHub. But maybe, Kris, you can tell something more on how can people...
Yeah, I know some that we're, but we can get in touch over this, but we're specifically looking into integrating Databricks at the moment for a specific client. So there, I mean, happy to give you some pointers on how we look at this, and then maybe if you want to contribute, we would love to. Maybe also I want to say, because I think, well, this is known, but I want to be explicit about it. So we're a consultancy, Conveyor is product, right? And you all know that Conveyor is we data mine, they're also the guys behind the product Conveyor and also behind the portal, but we see the portal as a separate thing, right? So we see the portal as the portal in Conveyor is decoupled from the consultancy. That's what I want to say. So we are looking for collaborations here also with other consultancies. We're not looking at as a consultancy to do all the integrations ourselves, because honestly, we're understaffed as we speak. So you shouldn't see this as oh no, that's another consultancy. This is more like, this will accelerate me as a consultancy at my clients, and I can, if I need backup, I can get to data mine it for backup. But you shouldn't really say. You should see this as an accelerator for yourself. I'm not sure if I explained that correctly. We see it at our clients, let's put it like that, is that we see a lot more adoption of the data platform, right? And the moment you have a lot more adoption as an external agency, it's always nice because you see you have more impact, right? It's always better to have a lot of, like the stupid example of the 200 data products all accessing through access. Well, I love that. That means that we're doing something that was relevant for the entire organization. Even though not everybody's writing Python code just yet or DBT code, that's maybe the next step, right? But it's great to see the adoption at our clients.
And as you're saying, Kris, it's great to see the adoption. I want to end the webinar with an invitation for our upcoming webinar, end of August. The portal is live already 1 month. The portal is already live at certain companies as well. And we aim to get one of the users on the webinar. I, again, will lead the discussion. I will talk you through it, but it should be a portal user talking about what the portal brings towards its own company and where he sees it on the market. So please join us on the upcoming webinar where we will really deep dive on the use of Portal, the initial use of Portal.
All right, cool.
It needs me to thank Kris for joining us. So thanks a lot, Kris. I think it was very insightful. If people want to get in contact, I think I already saw 12 or 13 people now joining the Slack community. We're both there, so you can still ask follow-up questions as well.
Indeed. Thank you, guys and girls.